Greetings everyone and welcome back to UK Black Men Talk Show with Anne's, live on Supreme FM, London's #1 community radio station. Guys, I'm so excited to introduce our next special guest. They're all special, and this lady is a lady I am in awe of. Okay, she's a powerful guest, an amazing lady. She is an author. She is so many things, as well as an amazing mother, an inspiration to women she is, and she's the author of A Very Civil Matter. Guys, it's such a pleasure to welcome back to UK Black Men Talk on Supreme FM, Elaine Duffus. Elaine, welcome to the show. Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for that. Always giving me these wonderful introductions, but thank you so much.
Well deserved, Elaine. A check-in number, and we're going to go straight to the topic today. So what's your check-in number, Elaine?
My check-in number is a 9.
Right.
Yes, 9.
Elaine's
had a
9.
good morning.
Brilliant, Elaine.
Yes, a 9.
Today, Elaine, we're going to talk about fathers. Okay, I'm going to just hand it over to you because you are someone who's impacted as well by your relationship with your father, and so much that you say that I know resonates with people, will connect with people. And you came on before, people were contacting me afterwards. Really, they embraced what you had to say. Right now, Elaine, fathers, what made you want to talk about that today? Let's hear what you've got to say about fathers today.
You know, I wrote my book, A Very Civil Matter, and in that book I spoke about my father, but I speak a lot about my mother on my Instagram, TikTok. I speak a lot about my mother, and I just kind of reflected on my dad, especially in the last couple of months, because there's been quite a few bereavements. And I've also been speaking to quite a few men. And when I speak to these men, and, you know, if it's got anything to do with ex-partners or their children, I always say to them how my dad was, because that's my example of a father. So my dad's name was Marcus Nehemiah Carr. There's several children in the family. He had such an impact in our family that there are several children that carry his name as their middle names. So I've got 3 sons. 2 of my sons carry his name, Marcus and Nehemiah. There's cousins that are called Mark. There's grandchildren that are called Mark, you know, because of his impact. And so for me, I was reflecting on my dad, and my dad at one time was a single parent. And even that, it didn't click to me. That's in the 60s, and he was actually a single parent. But I didn't look at it like that. I never looked at it until I'm talking to somebody, and I kind of thought, I got to really give it to my dad, because he was put in a position, and I'm not in no way saying my dad was perfect, because no single parent is perfect. But for me, he could have quite easily just walked away from his children, and he never did. My dad had a few of us, not loads and loads, but he had a few of us for different people, different women. However, when it came to the ending of a relationship, he never said, right, I am not gonna support my children. He just didn't. There was no question about us being provided for. And there were situations where I remember my mum and dad separated when I was 11, and I remember going to see my dad. He'd got married, and it was a tricky situation for him in terms of his new wife did not want him to give us money, and she would, you know, make excuses and stuff. But I walked away, because my dad didn't give us money at that time, and I walked away thinking, gosh, how can my dad do that? But with my older self now, I saw my dad did it, but he just did it in a different way. So what my dad would do is he would leave early. He would say, I'm going to work. And then he would come round to my mum's and he would drop our money. But I only clicked on it about 6 months ago. I thought, no, he did do it. He did it, but he just found a way of doing it. So both parties, there wouldn't be no offense. He was very diplomatic, but there is no way that he was not going to provide for his children. And even this morning I spoke to somebody, and CSA gets brought up a lot. And I always advise women and men, do not let it go to CSA, please. Because it then brings in that animosity. Try and find a way of working it out. The CSA is the very, 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 very last resort. Because those children have to be, children have to be provided for. And when I spoke to somebody, I said to them, this is what my dad did. If you feel that you're under pressure by your new partner, there is still a way. There's still a way. I know that, children will come in and you've got to provide, whether they're birth children or children that you're in your new relationship. But children, you can't decide, okay, I'm going to cut down the money. So the man decides, I'm going to cut down the money. So you're going to have to cut down food. You can't cut down food with children, or, school uniform is coming around. That's really expensive. And I just thought about my dad as my example to say to men, I know you think you're in a no-win situation, but you still have to provide for those children. And it's not about how the woman spends it. The children eat. There's basic things that they have to be provided for. And it was just thinking about how my dad did things. Some men would have said, right, okay, my wife is not going to like me giving to my children, so I'm not going to give then. I'm just not going to give. But he didn't do that. He just did it a different way. And I just thought of the things that he did. I got my first typewriter via my dad. That's why I type so fast. I was about 8, but I got a proper typewriter as well. So it wasn't like plastic. It was a adult typewriter. It was, before laptops. He just did things to progress me, especially as a young girl. I wasn't allowed to cook as well. I was gonna do business, and I don't know if he thought I was gonna have a maid or something. Just the way he thought was very forward. He was a forward thinker in terms of how he treated me as a young black girl. I was going to go into business. I was going to, progress in that way. It wasn't ever that, you're going to marry and have children. No, he wanted me to progress academically. And he supported us financially. And I just wanted to share, there is a way that I believe in amicable relationships. Whether you are with that person or not, it needs to be amicable for the sake of the children. I do believe that. And I just wanted to share about my dad in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And my dad passed away of prostate cancer. But to the end, he was a very good dad. He was a very good dad. Very, very, very good dad.
It impacts you, absolutely.
The grandchildren still talk about him. Even this week we were talking about him. So,
It's moving because men as fathers in the system, we don't often hear too much about men as fathers. And when you're father, you felt that unconditional love. I can feel that.
Yes.
You felt that from him. And you know that you're a queen, whatever word people want to use, you know that from your father. You with me? So exactly. And the lady that you are, that we see and feel. Okay, because listeners commenting last time you were on, people really feel that in you. And I think it's important for women to have this conversation. The father-daughter relationship is such a powerful one.
Definitely.
And your father sounds like amazing man, Elaine.
Yeah, he was a good example in terms of. I mean, he had a big house in the Campbell area, and I've got an older sister that came over from America, and she said that because he would rent rooms. That's what people did. You know, people came from the Caribbean. We hear a lot about the Windrush, and you know they were unable to live somewhere. And my sister told me a story that my dad rented a room to this man for 40 years. And for 40 years, this man never paid rent. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. And she said, well, on a Friday, he would pay the rent. But by Monday, he would say to my dad that he didn't have any money. And my dad would give him back the rent. And this went on for 40 years. And my dad, I'm very much like my dad in terms of, if I have it, I will give it. If I can provide food, shelter. My mum and dad were very similar. If they've got it, they are going to share it in the community. So when my sister told me this, I just smiled because I just thought, wow, imagine living somewhere. I mean, the cost of living in London is just so high, but imagine living somewhere for 40 years and never actually paying rent. And my dad did that because he wasn't going to argue. He didn't have any, as far as my dad was concerned, he didn't have any money. So he gave him back the rent on the Monday. And I was like, wow, that is the generosity of my dad.
Yeah. We're getting a picture of him. Yeah. We're building a picture of your father and that quality. I call them the quality men, and their legacy live on and on.
Yes.
And we need to see more of this in our community. We really do. Your father, a man of his word. I don't know your father, but I can tell he's a man of his word. Yeah. He was very much a man of his friends. Then respected him. He was highly full of generous man. As I said, the grandchildren, they speak so affectionately of him. I've got one nephew in particular, and I mean, when he passed, it was deep for him because they would go out together, they would have outings, and they would actually go out together. And I would go on seaside trips with my dad and my mom and my brother, and there's memories that I have of him. He taught us how to sensibly drink as well. So we had a room that had a bar, and he'd sit us on the stools, and we'd have these little tiny, I mean, they call them shot glasses, and these teeny like glasses, and he'd give us little sips of things. So, you know, just the way that he taught us about even sensible drinking, it was just he taught us visual. He would teach us how to do things by actually going through that process with us. And cooking, he did a better breakfast than my mum. He cooked, he did, when he cooked, we thoroughly enjoyed when he cooked us breakfast. We were like, let Dad cook breakfast. So those are the things that I saw growing up. He was very affectionate to my mom. He would hug her, he would kiss her, and they parted when I was 11. But I knew that I grew up in that house of love, and at the end it was tricky, but my mom always encouraged. We had to go and see our dad every day, so we didn't move too far, but every single day we had to go and see our dad. There was no question whether they're talking or not. We had to go and see our dad. So I've got that mindset when I had my children, and I've had 2 relationships that didn't go the way I would have wanted it to go, but that is what my mum encouraged me to do, and it was easy for me to do that. That they see their fathers. I don't see a problem once it is safe to do that. Once it is safe to do that, then they should see their fathers. Right. And Elaine, you know, we're pleased that you're joining us to celebrate fathers and talking about your father and the impact he had on you, which continues, and other family members and the community at large. And those men will never be forgotten. And that's why we celebrate black men as fathers. And it informs us, you know, it really informs us when we take our steps ahead. It informs us because, Elaine, talking of parents, you are an amazing parent, okay? And people were really impacted by your interview before, when you talked about being the mother of sons, the importance of male role models, and you definitely show an understanding of men. You know, you acknowledge that men have problems as well. And your amazing book, A Very Civil Matter, okay, that's going to be, if it's not already, a number one, okay, book, because it's such a powerful book. And I want to say to you, congratulations on your journey, because you're inspiring so many people, men and women, in the community. And that's what this show's about, to celebrate people and those people doing such great works. And to hear that you had a close relationship with your father as well, that really is, it's warming to me. It really is, because it's not all the time you hear of men being celebrated as fathers, just like we celebrate mothers. So I just want to say thanks for coming on and talking about that. And Elaine, so we also want to know what's happening for you in this closing, because obviously you're passing through today, okay? And we want to know in this closing part, okay, what's happening for you out there? What are the goals? What do you want to say to the community in terms of, we discuss all these issues here on Black Men Talk. You are a special guest that comes on and contributes to the topics. What would you say to people out here who are having these struggles? You have parents having these struggles, co-parenting, so much going on, and it can be so simple. So what would you say to people listening, okay, who, you know, you have to put the children first. For people with all these dilemmas, you mentioned sometimes you have the new partner doesn't want the man to see the biological children, or indeed she might have children with the man. There's all these dilemmas that and men do go through, trying to figure out what to do for the best. So just what would you say to people having difficulties in these situations where they have to co-parent? What advice would you share?
I mean, my first thing would be that, you know, you have to put the children first. You have to, and I'm not saying that you bow down to anybody, but you have to put the children first. Another way of looking at it as well, there is mediation. There is, if you don't want to use a professional mediator, then and there is somebody that I've tried to use in the past, then find a trusted family member, because I've had family members that have stepped in and said, look, we're looking at the children, I will do pick up, I will do drop off. I mean, that can't always be the case, but it has to be in the best interest of the children. If the child is saying they want to see the other parent and it is safe, it should be done. People need to now forget about themselves, whether you like that person or not. You've got to remember, at some time there was love in that relationship. And it is about, if you love your child enough, and you should love your child more than yourself, I'm going to say that now, because we're responsible for them. That child should see that parent. They must see that parent once it is safe to do. And I'm not going to move from my stance in that. And grandparents miss out as well. That shouldn't happen. Not now. They should see grandparents and aunties and be involved in family functions. And I mean, for me it was like, I want a day off, a weekend off. Why not? I think they should see their parents once it is safe. I'm going to really stress that.
Yes.
Once it is safe for them to see that other family member. I've just done a post about, we also need to be very careful how we speak around children, about the other parent. It's vitally important, because we've got to also remember that child as part of that other parent's DNA. So we've got to be very careful. No name calling, you know, enjoy that child when you have that child. You know, I just think that there's a lot of children missing out because they're in a civil war. They're in a battle that they really have no business being in. They shouldn't be in it. That's just my opinion.
And we value it. Absolutely. It's your opinion, Elaine, and we value it. I'd like to invite you back, because I know people want to hear you, want to talk about the co-parent, and if it helps people out there, and I know that it will. So we are inviting you back, Elaine Duffus. author of A Very Civil Matter, Two Black Men Talk Show. So Elaine, in closing, all right, a number from you and a word.
I would say I'm a 10.
Wow, yes.
We got there. And I would just say, really put the children first. It is, they're our heartbeats, and I really feel that we need to put our children first.
There you go, guys. You heard that from Elaine Duffus. Thanks so much, Elaine, for joining us today. We really appreciate you. Definitely. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure, guys. We're going to play out with this song. Self-explanatory, really. And it's the Luther Vandross tune. So all the fathers out there, you're doing an amazing job. Keep it going. We appreciate you, definitely. Supreme FM. We're going to be back with